Hey everyone, today we're going to be looking at the creepy, scary, and disturbing parts of Resident Evil 9 Requiem. Let's get into it. Starting out at the Rhodes Hill Care Center with maybe the game's most horrifying enemy, we have the girl. A grotesque creature with elongated and enlarged limbs, a horrible set of large teeth, and just a generally creepy posture and look to her as she slinks through the hallways of Rhodes Hill and scuttles about above you in the ceiling, climbing down when she's hunting. You also quickly discover that she hates light and it burns her. Therefore the girl lives in the basement, but was actually not wanted down there by the scientists of Rhodes Hill, which is why there's several lamps throughout this area to stop her if she appears. But this doesn't work out for them, with a note relaying a survivor of hers having seen his colleagues getting eaten alive, with it replaying like an endless loop in their head. The most mysterious thing about the girl though is who she is. What is this thing? Well, the truth can be found in a file. She's said to have transformed with use of a 2.3mm sample of blood, but taken from a total of 524.3 liters, from the blood of 115 T-virus infected zombies, which is probably what the huge meat grinder in the basement is for, but we'll get to that. So, the girl was transformed by inducing this small but likely focused sample of blood from over 100 infected. This caused some gained physical resilience and strange transformations, but nothing more. In this file, the girl is referred to as Subject 170 or Marie, a horrifying truth as Marie was seemingly the girl who was in the cell next to Emily, where we find her for the first time. Marie's doll can be found with her name on it, and there's a strange hole in her cell, almost like she may have tried to return to it after transforming into her monstrous form. Marie seemingly being a near identical clone of Emily, also being blind, as we can see on the model of the girl, so this is a kid. In fact, this is maybe the most disturbing part of the game, is the reveal of Emily becoming a monster after she suffers a deadly wound. Much like Marie, or the girl, Emily was also experimented on, but likely with different methods as she didn't transform like Marie did. However, she did have the ability to, within. This likely also means that the reason for Marie's transformation was some kind of physical trauma or injury, likely from an experiment that kicked off her mutation. Emily mutates and transforms pretty quickly after she seems to suffer near death, with her turning into this huge abomination. She has a huge claw in her hand, and a smaller shriveled arm as her other. Her head is the other most obvious and clearly mutated part, with it stretching out into this elongated mouth. She's quickly immobilized however by Leon shooting her. The third kid-turned-monster we encounter is called Chunk in the game, with there being two of these that we encounter as both Leon and Grace. These subjects appear to instead be men, or probably boys, seeing as they were experimenting on girls, named Thomas and Timothy Jackson. The reason why they're so huge is due to them undergoing a surgical procedure which removed the satiety center of the brain, leaving them both to become forever hungry and also gain weight far quicker. This is why they're both so huge, with Thomas even noted to ingest medical equipment, like infusion pumps and pacemakers. Timothy is the same, except he much prefers humans to ingest. I believe this is the one which Grace encounters, with him swearing at Grace and getting infuriated when she hides in a room he cannot reach, because he wants to eat her. All of these creatures, however, can be dispatched by attacks, and most easily by use of the Requiem. The other very creepy but more regular zombie we encounter in Rhodes Hill are the zombie singers, with there being two you can find on the site. They have the special ability to knock you off your feet and partially deafen you with their screams. The first you meet inside of the bar and lounge, with her singing being heard as far as the floor below in the dining room. The story behind them is that they had some cranial nerves removed, resulting in histrionic personality disorder, or main character syndrome, causing them to loudly sing and wander the halls believing they're the main character basically, which is quite eerie to encounter. The most extreme case being Selena, who is the one we find in the bar and lounge, said to put on performances. However, she's also said to have a rival, who she sings loudly and competes with. Her rival Eileen can be found in the conference room, and will shatter the glass with a scream when you approach. The two of them basically trying to prove that they're the one that's the true main character. Slightly funny, but also really horrifying. There's further a zombie close by to Eileen, a zombie who doesn't like sound. We find a report on why they're like this too, with it said to have happened after they were given an overdose of Zaprevel, which is a drug or hallucinogen of some kind most likely, mixed with the mutated T-virus. This causes the subject to undergo auditory hallucinations and further become aggressive, much like Chunk, especially around loud noises. This is the core sort of all of the experiments, is the mutated T-virus alongside some other factor. An interesting thing about the mutated T-virus is that it appears to cause the zombies to still remember a part of their lives from before, which is really creepy to encounter. When you walk around the halls of Rhodes Hill, you'll encounter many zombies rambling about one thing or another, mumbling out things that relate to their old lives, even finding ones that have gone completely crazy like the one found in the bathroom, trying to clean everything, but clearly failing as she's making even more mess. There's another who hates the light and repeatedly attempts to flick it off, getting incredibly angry when you shine a flashlight in their direction. There's also the chef who wanders the halls and appears to be searching for the right ingredient, which just so happens to be you. Inside the dining hall, there's also a bunch of zombies who are still sitting around and feasting, although this has devolved into something a lot more animalistic. One of the most interesting cases is the zombie surgeon, a freaky experiment as is, with him being found after discovering the body he was operating on, this body missing its lungs and heart, which you have to set out and find, with this experiment surrounding a subject with artificial organs. When you find these artificial organs and place them into the corpse as well, it does reanimate, but dies not long after, with the replacement organs eventually giving out, which is pretty horrifying. The surgeon will return to the room after some time and stand over the body, almost like he's preparing to do his job, remembering what he used to be, and of course attacking when you get too close. Blister Heads are the other horrifying looking enemy, having a grotesque mutation on their head, said to be an enlarged tumor. These being cases where a patient has double mutated, the T-virus has mutated multiple times over, causing these large growths to sprout and making them far more violent and also harder to kill. This occasionally occurring not just on the head, but across the entire body, which is where the larger blister-covered zombies come in, which are capable of actually infecting others too and double mutating them as well. So these zombies are probably like triple, maybe 4 times over mutated zombies, which is why they look so horrifying and grotesque. One of the most brutal weapons we got our hands on as the player is the Hemolytic Injectors. An injector filled with a pink liquid that doesn't so much act as a cure, but instead to just overload whatever it is injected into, causing them to rapidly mutate seemingly beyond their own capacity until they literally burst, which I don't think I can show, but just picture someone popping like a balloon. This seems to have been the most effective measure cooked up by the scientists of Rhodes Hill. The injector is made to destroy infected cells and also stop bodies from reanimating after they've already been killed. The basement of Rhodes Hill holds some truly terrible things, aside the girl of course, who roams around and appears to have killed off or at least scared away everyone in the area, as the entire basement is out of operation, with there only being 3 spark plugs which power the entire place, which must be relocated as you move through it. The most horrifying of the rooms is the huge meat grinder one, the story behind this basically just being that any T-virus infected subject that they received and didn't want to experiment on further was sent down here to the basement, rigged up to this large pulley and dropped into the big meat grinder, their blood being used to create creatures like the girl, but also for experimentation in the lab that we later discover, with the blood being used to fully soak bodies, possibly as a means to transform them or enable them the ability to interact with Elpis, or so they thought. In the cell area, we further find a doll that looks incredibly similar to the one found in Marie's cell, suggesting she was moved down here potentially before she fully transformed into the girl. It's quite freaky. The lab is the final area we go through at the care center, being hidden beneath an office with a secret door, only activatable through a secret key. This lab contains the site of all the experiments that went on with the mutated T-virus and all of the varying degrees of horrible additional modifications that were made. We can see subjects here encased within vats of infected blood, seemingly for them to absorb it. There's also the fail-safes on the walls, the extinguisher cans that are filled with hemolytic gas of some kind, which leads to a similarly explosive effect to that of the injector. The whole room is horrifying, with it revealing the true scale behind the operations here, with the huge central blood vat, which explodes and floods the place when set off. Ultimately, the truly horrifying thing is that this was all basically for nothing. All of these experiments didn't really get them any closer to Elpis and unlocking it, which is why it's also so quickly abandoned. Just think of how many people they must have experimented on to fill that thing. One of the pretty creepy things we find in the office before descending is a bottle of wine, which is the bottle which holds the secret capsule to activate the elevator. This is a bottle of wine produced by Lady Dimitrescu, one of the lords of RE8, connecting all of these horrifying events together. I thought that was pretty creepy. We next go to Raccoon City, which was destroyed after there were missiles fired over there 2 decades ago, decimating the place, but leaving many monsters still intact within the city's walls. Many of the infected here have been overcome with the main illness or virus within the game, Raccoon City Syndrome. With both Leon and Sherry exhibiting symptoms, they have a strange black veiny growth across some part of their body. For Leon, this is very notable as it climbs up the side of his neck and onto his face. It causes this growth to expand slowly before making the subject cough up blood and bleed internally, before eventually they are fully taken over and killed. We see how it affects Leon throughout the game, with him nearly dying at multiple points. The virus is interesting too, as it only affects those who were at the original Raccoon City disaster, like Leon and Cherry. One of your first encounters in the city are zombies, which rise out of the floor, hidden beneath the ash for all of these years. And then next is the giant spider, a potentially further mutated version of the spiders from RE1, as this spider is far bigger and scarier, to be honest. It begs the question of what else is out there in the destroyed Raccoon City. There's likely more of these spiders out there for sure, as we see its babies running around, suggesting there's a bunch more of these spiders in the city. Everything here was just laying dormant, waiting for you to come. In Raccoon City, you uncover the story of Meryl, a girl who attempted to survive the initial disaster, but doesn't quite understand what's going on, which is denoted through a series of letters she has left to her mother. She first leaves one for her mother after trying to find her father at the nearby gas station. She then gets scared by all the strange noises and goes off with a man named Mr. George. The third letter mentions that she tried to enter the police station, but her father screamed at her, so she went instead with Mr. George again. Unfortunately, it sounds like Mr. George had a bite though, which Meryl graciously gave him a kitty bandage for, which happens in the parking garage of the RPD, which is eventually overrun by zombies and zombified dogs. She seems to escape this though, and then goes to Kendo's store, with him of course also getting bitten and killed. Ultimately, we find out what happened to her too. We find in the alleyway beside Kendo's a pair of girls' shoes and a blank letter, suggesting she was killed here. We further find the remains of Kendo himself inside the shop, as well as his shotgun. Meryl is also the daughter of Marvin, the police officer we first meet as Leon in RE2, who saves him but dies, which is really sad. Inside of the RPD itself, there's a few pretty creepy things to note. The first is a zombie which smacks a vending machine, much like the one did way back in RE2. Probably the same one, potentially reanimated once again. It seems the blast really was not that effective. The second is the zombie that we encounter in the hall, with its jaw mentioned to be missing. This is actually a zombie Leon encountered way back in RE2 as well, with its jaw being ripped originally, but now entirely falling off. The typewriter in the main hall is now also destroyed and unusable. I personally found this quite creepy, or eerie at least. These are usually a point of safety in Resident Evil games. You'll further find the dusty beret that belongs to Jill, as well as Chris's jacket and Rebecca's first aid kit. Many remnants of a destroyed past. You can also find the creepy picture Wesker keeps of Rebecca, which he hid away in a herb book. What the hell, man? You can also find his glasses stashed away in a briefcase too. His presence looming over the story. This brings us up to the orphanage, and specifically the children inside. We play a section as Chloe, who's another clone girl. She wanders the halls of the orphanage and comes across a bunch of children with glowing red eyes and seemingly sliced open heads. All of these children were experimented on for the same reason as the children within the care center. It was believed that something was hidden within Grace, or her blood, and so this child, whoever the original was cloned and experimented on, hiding away the deeds of this all within the orphanage where the children were kept. With the secret tunnel which led out down to the lab, what has happened to these children specifically is unclear, but they appear to be near invulnerable, shrugging off bullets and laughing maniacally, hunting down Chloe as she attempts to escape them. The sad thing about this all too is that Elpis ends up being the complete opposite of what everyone thought. All these experiments did not need to happen. If we're going to go off the experiments done to Chloe, Subject 60, we can assume that these children develop some kind of mental abnormality, causing them to laugh and act like they do. It's likely that these ones specifically were experimented on far more thoroughly though, with a note stating that they had undergone many experiments, with the surgical scars on their heads clearly hinting towards some kind of brain surgery going on, or removal of certain sections of the brain, much like we heard about in the care center as well. Inside of the ARK lab, we can find a number of documents that talk about the monsters of ARK. all of them being sold for a hefty price to presumably the government or different corporations possibly, with the connections seeming to have relations with Umbrella, Tricell, and many other evil corporations we've encountered throughout the series. The Gamma is noted, a dog-like creature that chases us in the motorbike segment, selling for $30 million, these being an enhanced version of Umbrella's Cerberus, the more regular-looking dogs from RE2, now transformed into these horrific beasts. Next is the Lickers, which are priced at $14 million. The Lickers being far more similar in look though, but seemingly being slightly stronger as well. The Plant, as it's labelled, is up for $100 million, which has seemed to have gone completely out of control as it causes this sprawling mass at the entrance of the Ark, leaving it unenterable until Leon clears the way. It looks quite similar to how the mold spread in RE7. The next step up is the CMT-501 Tyrant, a modified and enhanced version of Mr. X, who we encounter and fight once more. This one arguably Leon dispatches far quicker though, likely due to his experience however. The final one is mysterious, with us not initially seeing one of these. It's a CMNE Gamma 1 or Nemesis Gamma, this being an upgraded version of the Nemesis. At the very end of the game we discover that this is actually Victor Gideon himself, with him displaying the capabilities and mutations of the Nemesis. This means Victor is also embedded with a Nemesis parasite, which explains why he's more intelligent than a creature like Mr. X, say. He's enabled with much more complex thought and planning, and probably to an even greater degree when compared to Nemesis, who oftentimes was not very intelligent. The facility is further overrun with zombies, but ones that appear strange and grey and similar to the ones that appear on the statues at the entrance, suggesting they were undergoing something entirely different. We of course also have the very mysterious character of Zeno, a character who is eerily similar in appearance to Albert Wesker, yet seems to have no direct relation to him, with there being no available files currently that denote what or who he is. He does however possess similar abilities, making him very mysterious, and further speaking in the same way and having the same style, meaning it's likely he's a Wesker clone or possibly even another secret child within Project W, although unlikely as he's often called an imitation by Victor, suggesting he too is likely an experiment, especially when considering the return of other powerful BOWs like Mr. X and Nemesis. Zeno may just be the Wesker equivalent of those same experiments, now performed by the Connections, as he too appears to be infected with the mutated T-virus. The basement of the Ark is maybe the most horrifying section of the game though, being a huge sprawling room filled with the remains of all those failed experiments, essentially being a dirty pit of meat, rotting and intermingled with metal. It's truly horrifying. Alright, well that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.